Some foods can change a child's behavior within hours. Most parents almost never connect the dots. Parents often blame sugar for hyperactivity, but here is the surprising part. The real behavior problem usually isn't sugar itself. I'm a pediatrician, a researcher, and a mom, and today I'll show you 3 groups of foods that can dramatically influence kids' mood, energy, and behavior, sometimes much faster than you'd expect. And more importantly, I'll show you very simple ways to reduce these effects without banning your child's favorite foods completely. Let's start with the most misunderstood group of foods: sugar and fast carbs. Many parents believe the solution is simple: just don't give kids sugar. But science tells a more interesting story. The real issue isn't sugar itself, it's what happens when fast carbs hit an empty stomach. When a child eats fast carbs, cookies, juice, sweet fruit, on an empty stomach, blood sugar spikes like a rocket, and every time it happens, that extra sugar turns straight into fat, quietly creating more fat cells. Even more interesting, during those sugar spikes they actually feel happy and satisfied. That's because glucose surges trigger a quick release of happiness hormones in the brain. But then comes the crash. Blood sugar drops sharply and suddenly kids feel tired, even angry and hungry again. So they reach for more quick carbs and the cycle repeats. Now here is the tricky part. Fast sugar is hidden almost everywhere in children's foods. Breakfast cereals, sweet yogurts, fruit pouches labeled 6+ months, even fresh juices. Yes, even natural fruit sugars, when concentrated, can act similarly to regular sugar. At the moment we often give kids the most sugar, it's breakfast. So the child is energetic in the morning and completely melting down by lunchtime. Sound familiar? Now you might think the solution is no sugar at all, but that's not realistic. And honestly, I don't like that either. The real solution is surprisingly simple, and it comes straight from the basic physiology. When fast carbs is eaten alone on an empty stomach, it gets absorbed extremely quickly. That's what causes those sharp spikes and crashes. But if you add certain foods together with sugar, they slow down absorption and smooth out that curve. The result? The child eats the same food, but without the emotional roller coaster. 3 things can dramatically slow down sugar spikes: protein, fiber, and healthy fats. They work from different mechanisms, but the result is the same: a stable blood sugar curve instead of a spike. And here is a simple example. One child eats cereal with milk on an empty stomach. Sugar spike, crash, mood swings. Another child eats an egg or some Greek yogurt before the cereal, and now blood sugar rises slowly and falls slowly. Same breakfast, completely different behavior outcome. I'll actually explain this video in detail in one of my previous videos. I'll link it right here. But now let's move to a food-related problem that can affect behavior even more strongly than sugar, and most parents don't realize it's happening. Imagine a toddler who seems constantly irritable. They get tired quickly, they struggle to focus, they have frequent mood swings, and many parents assume this is just personality or a difficult developmental stage. But sometimes the real reason is something surprisingly simple: low iron. Iron deficiency is one of the most common nutritional problems in toddlers, and it can directly affect brain function. Because iron helps deliver oxygen to the brain and support the production of dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for focus and emotional control. So when iron levels drop, behavior can change too. Have you ever noticed your child becoming unusually irritable or having trouble concentrating? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious how often parents notice it. And now let's talk about why iron deficiency happens so often, even in well-fed kids. There are 3 very common and surprisingly not obvious reasons. Too much milk. This is sometimes called milk anemia. When children over 1 year drink too much milk, usually more than about 500 ml per day, 2 things happen. First, calcium blocks iron absorption. Second, milk creates a strong feeling of fullness. So kids often refuse meat, vegetables, and other iron-rich foods. Many toddlers end up eating mostly white foods: pasta, bread, cookies, crackers. These foods are low in iron, and when they replace protein foods in the diet, iron stores can drop surprisingly quickly. Not enough vitamin C. Even if a child eats iron-rich foods like lentils or red meat, the body still needs vitamin C to absorb that iron effectively. Without fruits, vegetables, and fresh foods in the diet, iron absorption drops significantly. There is also a fourth reason that affects younger babies. If complementary feeding starts too late, after about 6 or 8 months, babies may simply run out of the iron stores they received during pregnancy. And if that happens, iron deficiency can develop surprisingly fast. So, in simple terms, preventing iron deficiency usually comes down to a few very basic nutrition principles. First, after the age of 1, try not to give more than about 500 ml of milk per day, and avoid combining dairy with meat in the same meal, because calcium can interfere with iron absorption. Second, try not to rely too heavily on what I call white foods, things like pasta, bread, crackers, and cookies, because they can easily replace iron-rich foods in a child's diet. And third, don't forget about fresh vegetables and foods rich in vitamin C, which help the body absorb iron much more effectively. I'm actually preparing a full episode on how to recognize iron deficiency early and how to correct it effectively, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. And now let's talk about the third group of foods that can strongly affect kids' behavior, and this one has a lot to do with the brain development itself. A child's brain is largely made of fat, and during the first years of life, especially up to age 7, the brain is still actively developing. When children regularly eat healthy fats, the brain not only works better in the moment, it's literally being programmed for long-term performance. But when the diet contains large amounts of trans fats and ultra-processed foods, these unhealthy fats can begin to replace the beneficial ones in brain cell membranes. And that can affect many aspects of brain function. Research has linked diets high in trans fats to higher risk of ADHD, reduced memory and learning ability, emotional instability, irritability and aggression, and slower cognitive processing. Here is the key insight many parents miss. Children do need fat in their diet, especially for brain development. The goal is not to restrict fat. The goal is simply to follow a few basic rules that help kids get the right kinds of fats. I explained those 3 simple rules in my video about healthy fats for brain development. You can find it right here.
But trans fats, on the other hand, are something we really should try to minimize, and unfortunately, they are still hidden in many common foods.
The good news is that once you know where they hide, they are actually quite easy to filter out. I'll also talk more about this in an upcoming video. So again, subscribe if you don't want to miss it. So when parents see difficult behavior, they often think about discipline. But often the real place to start is the kitchen. KidsByScience, where proven wellness for kids meets real life.